Hi, I'm Todd Russell. I'm a certified financial planner professional in Nashville, Tennessee. I created this site and these videos to teach about long-term care insurance product solutions, how they work, the different plans, for the purpose of informing you as a consumer what is available in the marketplace so that you can make a well-informed decision. But before someone considers putting one of these plans in place, there needs to be some thought given to how you want your care to be provided should you need it at some point in the future. So a long-term care policy is only one piece to a larger puzzle. This slide deck covers the other pieces you should consider as part of constructing your personal long-term care plan. I refer to these items as the 4 pillars of long-term care planning. Part of having a workable plan is first creating your plan and communicating that to your family or to the people who will be responsible for providing or overseeing your care. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find a downloadable guide in the notes below, which is an outline to help you create a personal plan based around these 4 pillars I'm about to discuss. Or if you'd like to take this a step further, there's a link you can click to complete this guide online. When you complete it, it will be emailed to you, and then you can forward it to your family and use it as a starting point to open this door to this very important planning conversation. Square one is we need to define long-term care planning. So long-term care planning means having a strategy in place for the season of life when you can no longer care for yourself. So you have to accept the fact that there may come a time when you're not able to care for yourself and you need to have a plan in place. A long-term care plan is how you make sure your care is guided, your wishes are respected, and the people you love are not left guessing how you want to be cared for, or they're not carrying the burden of being placed in a position of having to make care choices for you. So you make your wishes known and you formalize your desires in legal documents, and you communicate your wishes with those who may ultimately be responsible for your care, and this is going to take the guesswork out of it for them. And for many, this is also the key to aging in place safely and on your terms. If your desire is to stay at home, it's planning and communicating that plan in advance based on your wishes and on your terms. So let's review the 4 pillars of long-term care planning. First is the legal side, and this is just simply making sure the right documents are in place so that decisions are made the way you want them by the people you trust. And examples of this would be powers of attorney, living wills, and trusts. Next is the financial piece of a long-term care plan. And this is having a plan to pay for care, knowing the estimated cost you can expect to pay. You don't want this to be a surprise, and you should have an idea of what it costs. And later in this presentation, I'll share some resources that you can find out some averages of cost in your area. Third is the emotional component to a care plan. And this is reducing the guilt and the stress and the family conflict that often comes with caregiving decisions. Examples of this would be to facilitate family discussions with your spouse and children, setting expectations of what your desires are, because you want to protect the relationship of those who are caring for you. And maybe even more important, if your family is unable to help or if you are single, having a thoughtful care plan can provide you great peace of mind. And then last is the logistical structure of your plan. This is deciding and communicating who will step in and manage your care, how care will be delivered, and making sure your plan is workable in real life. Examples of this would be who is going to schedule caregivers and who's coordinating daily responsibilities like meals, groceries, bathing, dressing, doctor's appointments, medications, and who's responsible for paying bills and other items. And I'll break these down more for you a little more in the remaining slides. So let's review the legal aspect a little more in detail. So ultimately, you'll want to meet with a qualified attorney in your area who focuses on estate planning. Ask your financial advisor or people that you trust for references to a qualified attorney. You can also do online research and read Google reviews because a lot of people will express their opinions of the interactions that they've had with attorneys, so you can learn a lot through reading Google reviews. So the first document to be familiar with is a durable power of attorney. And this is a legal document where you name someone to handle your financial and legal affairs, and it generally goes into effect if you become mentally or physically incapacitated. So your named person can step in to pay bills, manage accounts, handle property, and make financial and legal decisions for you. Next is a power of attorney for healthcare. And this document lets you name someone to make medical decisions for you if you're ever unable to speak for yourself. This person, who is your healthcare agent, can talk to doctors, approve or decline treatments, and make decisions on your behalf that align with your wishes. And so continuing, a living will is a written document that spells out your wishes for medical treatments if you're ever seriously ill or injured and you can't speak for yourself. It guides doctors and your family on things like life support, resuscitation, and end-of-life care, so your choices are made known and respected. And your living will and healthcare power of attorney work together, and these two documents form the foundation of your medical decision-making plan. Your living will outlines what kinds of care you want or you don't want in critical health situations, and the healthcare power of attorney names who you trust to speak for you and carry out those wishes. And together they're going to ensure your wishes are honored and your loved ones aren't left guessing. And so this is important to not put the burden of a potentially very difficult care decision on those around you. And so rounding out your estate documents is going to be your last will and testament. This document states who should receive your assets after you pass away. It also allows you to name guardians for minor children and an executor to carry out your wishes for your property after you pass away. Whatever's included in your will must go through probate process, which is a public, and it does carry some cost and it does take time. And then finally, a revocable living trust is a flexible estate planning document that lets you transfer ownership of your assets into a trust while you're alive. You control everything in the trust as the trustee, just as if you owned it personally. You may change or cancel it at any time. After you pass away, or if you become incapacitated, a successor trustee can manage or distribute the assets without being subject to the probate process, which generally protects your privacy. And these last two documents work in tandem. A revocable living trust and a last will and testament is not really an either or. They often work best together. The revocable living trust can manage and distribute assets smoothly, often avoiding probate, and then the last will and testament serves as a backup for anything not placed in the trust. And together, these will help ensure your full estate is covered, your wishes are honored, and the transition of your property is easier for your family. So let's say you've already had these documents completed in the past. So you may be thinking, okay, my estate documents are in place. I can check that off the list. I'm done. Well, not quite. It's often a good idea to review your documents every couple of years and ask a couple of questions. First, will the people that you name in your documents be willing and capable of stepping in to serve in those roles? Make sure that's the case. Second, if you have any seasoned documents, are they updated to reflect your current wishes? Perhaps you've changed your mind on something, or maybe even someone you've named. It's important to review and make any updates that are needed. And then last, do you have any backup agents or successor trustees named if someone is deceased or unwilling to serve? Backups are always a good idea to have in place in your documents. And the goal of this is to make sure you have these documents in place. You want to ensure that they remain current. So create a rhythm of reviewing these every 3 to 5 years. So moving on to the second pillar that we need to review now is the financial pillar. So how do you prepare financially for an extended care event? So first, I think you need to know what the cost is now and what it might be in the future. So a great question to ask and answer is, what is the cost of care where you live currently? So there is a website called CareScout that you can check out and see what ranges of care cost in your certain areas that you may live in. Just go to carescout.com or Google it, and then you'll be able to find this website. I would also suggest you could call around to home health care agencies, assisted living facilities, or even nursing homes and see what the all-in cost is and if they have a waiting list for that particular facility. Another cost that sometimes can't be quantified is if your family are the ones who plan to, or maybe they're forced to become your caregivers. So this cost is going to show up in the form of missed work, missed family events, or perhaps even paying for your care rather than saving for their own retirement. And a comment clients will often make to me is on the idea of, I don't want to be a burden to my family. And those comments generally come when they're in the middle of caring for a parent or they've had an experience caring for a parent or an in-law. They see the cost in terms of the amount of times and resources that it takes to successfully manage a thoughtful and loving plan for their parents. Also, you might be in a situation where you don't have children or you can't depend on them for help. This is all the more reason to have a good plan of care in place for yourself. So care is not free. It's got to be paid by you or someone else. So we have to ask and address the question, how will you pay for care should you need it? And there are really 5 main options. Number 1 is you self-insure. And so this simply means using your own assets to pay care cost out of pocket. It works if you have plenty of assets and income sources, but it can create a little uncertainty. How much care might you need? For how long might you need it? And what impact might that have on you and your spouse's retirement or family's financial future? Number 2 is your family pays. So most families don't plan on writing checks, but that's often what happens when there's no plan or limited funds available to pay for care. So the bigger cost here is generally emotional. You've got the financial strain of having to pay for 2 households, time off work, and your caregivers have to take time away from their own family. And this has potential to create some relationship stress among family members. Number 3 is the government pays. And Medicaid is the main payer here, but only after you've spent down most of your assets to qualify. It often limits your options for care settings and the quality of that care. It's generally a last resort and not really a good plan. Number 4 is we could replenish through life insurance. And this is just simply a financial strategy for some people who are going to choose to self-insure and use their assets to pay for care if needed, and then at their passing, use the life insurance proceeds to restore the assets that were spent down for care. So this helps preserve the legacy and protects surviving family members from any financial loss. It can also provide a cash infusion for your spouse should they need care. And then last, long-term care insurance. So long-term care insurance is the only tool designed specifically to pay for end-of-life care. It creates a predictable cash flow where you're effectively leveraging pennies today to create hundreds of dollars tomorrow. It transfers the risk off your balance sheet and keeps your assets working for you rather than being consumed for care. And there are a lot of other slide decks on my website and on my YouTube channel dedicated to specifically discussing the different long-term care insurance solutions in the marketplace. So the next topic to cover is the emotional side of caregiving for the provider as well as the recipient of care. So for the family members or the loved ones providing or supervising care, what are the issues that often come up? First is role strain. Becoming a caregiver often means becoming a nurse, a case manager, a driver, and a healthcare advocate, all while trying to be a spouse, a child, or a friend. Next is emotional exhaustion. Even when care is given with love, the stress of decision making, medical appointments, and constant vigilance can lead to burnout. Guilt and resentment is prevalent. Many caregivers wrestle with guilt, feeling like they're not doing enough, even when they're overwhelmed. This often leads to resentment toward other family members who are not able or willing to help. It can also create resentment from their own spouses or children from not being involved with them due to caring for a parent. Also, lives get put on hold. Careers, marriages, parenting, and personal health often takes a back seat when someone is a caregiver. Family friction is an issue. Unequal caregiving roles can lead to tension or resentment among siblings or spouses, especially when some step in and others step back. And so also the flip side of this coin is we have to think about the emotional side for the ones who are receiving care. First is they do have a loss of independence. Accepting help, especially from a child or a spouse, can be emotionally painful and a sense of feeling like a burden. Also, an erosion of dignity. Needing help with dressing, bathing, or toileting is a deeply vulnerable experience that can trigger shame, depression, or even withdrawal. A frustration and fear. People have physical limitations, often bring emotional distress. Loss of mobility, memory, or control can feel like losing yourself. Isolation is common. As care needs increase, social interactions often decrease. Loneliness can become more painful than the physical condition itself. And also you have relational shifts. The parent to child or husband to wife dynamic changes. The care recipient may feel guilt, grief, or confusion as the roles reverse. A hard part of long-term care planning is facing the unknowns and the what-ifs that families never expect but almost always encounter. So a few questions to ask and think about and discuss are the following. So first, how will family dynamics shift when someone becomes the caregiver? Very important to talk about. Next is, will your loved ones agree on your care decisions or will it cause conflict? So herein lies the reasons you should document your plan of care for your family so they're not put in the position of making your care decisions for you. And then last, how will you emotionally handle the transition from independence to needing help? The last of the four pillars is the logistical side of care. So you may have family members who say things along the lines of, well, I'll take care of mom and dad. Or a child may say, you'll move in with us. Or maybe spouses say to each other, we'll take care of one another. Well, these are all, of course, noble today, but they may not be practical in the future. You need to think about logistics of planning for care and be realistic about it. May not be realistic for two 85-year-olds to physically care for each other in the future. So first, care doesn't happen in a vacuum. It has to be managed. So who's going to coordinate care services? Who will hire a vet and schedule home health aides or facility moves? Who makes sure medications are filled, appointments are kept, and records are shared? Second thing to think about is someone becomes the care manager, even if they didn't sign up for the job. Every long-term care situation needs a point person. Someone has got to be responsible. So this role often falls to the closest family member by default and necessity, not really by design. Think about the daily logistics of the care. So transportation to appointments, meal planning and delivery, managing household bills, navigating insurance claims and billing, and adapting the home for safety, like grab bars, ramps, etc. And then last, time's a resource too. So even if the family can handle caregiving emotionally and financially, do they have the time? Coordinating care can become a full-time job, especially when juggling kids, careers, and especially their own lives. So we've walked through the logistical component, but there are often some major unknowns that can throw families off course. So this is a list of questions to ask and think about when we discuss some of the uncertainties for planning for long-term care. First is, will you be able to find reliable caregivers in your area? So a metropolitan area may be easier than a rural area. Number two, who will coordinate all the moving parts, especially if your family is out of town? Next is, how will you navigate the complexity of Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance? Who's going to be running point on those? Is your home suitable for aging in place, or will you need modifications? Another question is, what if care is needed suddenly, like after a fall or a stroke or a medical diagnosis? Who's going to step in and lead this for you? And these are all items you want to consider and know how you will handle before you get to this point. So let's bring the plane in for a landing. Long-term care planning isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing for what you can't predict. So when you create your plan, you're preparing for the known unknowns. So these four pillars give you structure to plan wisely, outline your care design, and protect the people you love from unnecessary stress. So I'll close out with a few resources for you. First is my website, which is myltciplan.com. You'll find additional videos, guides, and Long-Term Care Professor, which is my AI tool you may ask questions to. And I mentioned at the start of the video a long-term care planning guide. You can download this guide, or if you fill it out online, it'll be emailed to you and you can pass the email on to your family and loved ones to share your plan with them. And then last, if you'd like to see and learn more about what long-term care insurance policy options are available in the marketplace, go to my website and keep exploring and learn more. I have sample pricing outlines, customized proposal request forms, and other useful information you may find beneficial as you explore this subject of long-term care.